The moment news broke, it sent a chill through communities on opposite sides of the world. Two places that should symbolize normal life, safety, and everyday peace were suddenly connected by violence. Questions flooded social media. Fear spread fast, and people wanted answers. When Senator Chris Murphy finally spoke, his words didn't just respond to an incident. They reflected a growing global anxiety about public safety, accountability, and the cost of inaction. What he said matters, and why he said it matters even more. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down Senator Chris Murphy's response after the shocking shootings in Providence and Bondi Beach. This isn't just about a political statement. It's about understanding the message, the context, the implications, and what it means for public safety moving forward. We're going to walk through this carefully, clearly, and honestly. So by the end of this video, you'll have a complete picture of why this moment is drawing so much attention. From the outset, Senator Murphy's response was immediate, direct, and emotionally charged, which is not accidental. His public remarks were delivered with urgency, clearly designed to reach beyond political circles and speak directly to everyday people watching the news in disbelief. He framed the shootings as part of a broader pattern, not isolated tragedies, emphasizing that what happened in Providence and Bondi Beach fits into a global trend of rising violence that cannot be ignored. His exterior message, the one meant for the public and the media, focused heavily on accountability, responsibility, and the moral cost of delay. The language was firm, intentionally uncomfortable, and structured to keep the focus on victims rather than politics. That approach is part of why his response gained traction so quickly. Beneath that outward message lies the interior substance of his response, and this is where it becomes more strategic. In just a few carefully chosen points, Murphy highlighted the systemic failures that allow such tragedies to repeat themselves. He avoided unnecessary detail and instead focused on the root causes, drawing attention to policy gaps, enforcement weaknesses, and cultural normalization of violence. This interior layer of his remarks was concise but deliberate, designed to support his broader argument without overwhelming the audience. When it comes to performance, Senator Murphy delivered his response with controlled intensity. His tone balanced grief and frustration without tipping into rage, which helped maintain credibility. There was no sense of panic, but there was unmistakable urgency. This performance matters because public trust often depends on whether a leader appears composed while still emotionally invested. His pacing allowed key points to land, and pauses were used effectively to let the weight of his words settle. This wasn't a speech aimed at applause. It was crafted to provoke reflection and ideally action. That balance is difficult to achieve, and it's a major reason his statement resonated across different audiences. Safety features, in the context of Murphy's response, refer not to physical objects but to policy safeguards and preventative measures. He repeatedly emphasized the importance of early intervention, responsible regulation, and community-based prevention strategies. This argument was built around the idea that safety is proactive, not reactive. He highlighted measures such as improved background checks, better mental health support, and stronger community policing frameworks as essential components of a comprehensive safety system. Rather than presenting these ideas as radical, he framed them as common-sense protections that align with public expectations. This framing makes his safety-focused message more accessible and harder to dismiss. One of the unique selling points of Murphy's response is its international relevance. By addressing shootings in both Providence and Bondi Beach, he positioned the issue as global rather than strictly national. This broader lens sets his commentary apart from typical political reactions that focus only on domestic concerns. He acknowledged that while laws and cultures differ, the underlying drivers of violence often overlap. This approach invites cooperation and shared learning between countries rather than blame or isolation. It also signals that solutions require collective effort, not just isolated reforms. Another standout aspect is his consistency. Senator Murphy has long been vocal about violence prevention, and this response aligns with his previous positions. That consistency strengthens his credibility and reinforces the perception that his reaction is rooted in principle, rather than opportunism. Viewers who follow his work can see a clear through line, while new audiences are introduced to a message that feels established rather than improvised. This continuity acts as a trust-building mechanism, making his words more persuasive. Price in this discussion is about cost. Not just financial, but social and human. Murphy was explicit about the price communities pay when violence becomes normalized. He spoke about the economic burden of emergency response, healthcare, and lost productivity. But he placed even greater emphasis on the emotional cost borne by families and neighborhoods. According to his framing, the true price of inaction is measured in trauma, fear, and lost potential. By articulating cost in these terms, he reframed policy debates as moral decisions rather than budgetary ones. It's the political price, acknowledging that meaningful reform often comes with resistance and controversy. However, he argued that leadership requires accepting that cost in service of long-term safety. This perspective challenges officials to weigh short-term backlash against long-term benefit, a calculation that many avoid. By naming this tension openly, Murphy positioned himself as willing to confront difficult realities rather than sidestep them. Throughout his response, there was a clear emphasis on victims and communities rather than perpetrators. This choice shifts the narrative away from sensationalism and toward healing and prevention. He called for honoring victims not just with words, but with concrete action that reduces the likelihood of future tragedies. This victim-centered framing is another unique element that distinguishes his message in a crowded media landscape. The reaction to his statement further highlights its impact. Supporters praised its clarity and moral grounding, while critics challenged its feasibility or political implications. Regardless of stance, the response sparked conversation, which is often the first step toward change. Media outlets replayed key excerpts, social platforms debated his points, and advocacy groups amplified his message. This level of engagement suggests that his words struck a nerve beyond partisan boundaries. In examining the broader context, it's important to recognize how timing influenced reception. Coming so soon after the shootings, his response met a moment of heightened emotion and attention. This immediacy can be risky, but it also ensures relevance. Murphy navigated this carefully, avoiding speculation while still addressing urgency. That balance allowed him to contribute meaningfully without appearing reactionary. As the discussion continues, the lasting value of his response will depend on follow-through. Statements alone cannot prevent violence, but they can shape priorities and influence policy agendas. Murphy's remarks set a clear benchmark against which future actions can be measured. Whether those actions materialize remains to be seen. In conclusion, Senator Chris Murphy breaking his silence after the shocking shootings in Providence and Bondi Beach was more than a routine political reaction. It was a carefully constructed message designed to inform, challenge, and mobilize. From its emotionally resonant exterior to its concise interior substance, from its composed performance to its emphasis on safety and prevention, the response stands out in a crowded field of commentary. Its unique selling points, global perspective, consistency and victim-centered framing, add depth and credibility. By addressing the true price of violence, Murphy reframed the conversation around shared responsibility and long-term impact. Whether one agrees with his positions or not, his response has undeniably shaped the narrative and forced a deeper examination of how societies confront violence. That in itself makes this moment significant and worth understanding.